Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September the 4th regular council meeting. And at this time, we have everyone present. And was our young lady not here? Oh, I thought I saw her. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. And just remind everyone to turn your electronics off and you won't interfere with the meeting. And ask if there's any conflict of interest amongst the council members. No, thank you very much. If you find yourself, just let us know. Looking for the adoption of the published agenda for the regular council meeting for September the 4th. Moved by Councillor Rogers and Councillor Snively, and we have an addition from Mr. Roger.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just one small correction on item 5.1 on the agenda, the regular council meeting minutes from August 20th. There should be a correction on page 4 of those minutes, section 8.5, in which there's the counting of the recorded vote. The reference should be to Councillor Rogers, not Mayor McDermott.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the notice of motion section, I would like to introduce two notices of motion. One regarding the junior school property and development, and another one regarding safety zones and speeding around school districts.
Thank you for that. Are there any others? No? Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. Now we're looking for the adoption of minutes for August the 20th, 5.1, 2018. Councillor Rogers, Councillor Bondi, with a question. Okay?
With the correction.
Oh, with the correction. Oh, thank you very much for that. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. 2018 special council meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Bondi, supported by Councillor Vokes. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. 5.2 special council minutes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe we passed them on consent under 5.2.
Okay, right on. You're right. We'll go to 5.3, 2017 special meeting minutes. And once again, we can accept them all. Councillor Snively, Deputy Mayor Malash with question. Councillor Rogers.
I would just like to abstain from the ones that occurred prior to my being on council.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. Are there any on there that anyone would like to discuss? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. 5.4, special council meeting December the 5th, 2016. That special council meeting minutes held December the 5th. Regards to the Shepley Drain be adopted as circulated. Councillor Vokes moves, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries. We're down to number 6, public presentations. We have Kelsey Santa Rosa, the Youth Council Coalition of Canada. Welcome, young lady.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as the Mayor mentioned, my name is Kelsey Santa Rosa, and I'm the founder of a new organization called the Youth Council Coalition of Canada. We incorporated federally in April of this year, and our goal as a not-for-profit is to foster the development, success, and influence of youth councils across Canada, starting in Ontario. I am a Lakeshore native and was a part of the Town of Lakeshore Youth Council for almost 8 years. And this organization was born out of my somewhat frustration that the council is currently dormant. So I started seeking out youth councils across the province to see where they were existing, what their successes were, and where they could use a little bit of help. So typically, according to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, a youth council is typically an advisory body or a committee that reports to council. In the case in Essex, of course, that is done by 2 youth councillors, which we do see the trustee position across the province, but it is not typically the majority of them that work or function this way. So when I set out on my personal research, I found that there were 93 youth councils in the province of Ontario. I'm the first person to compile this data. And what we found was that a majority of them are governed by municipalities. Some are constituency youth councils governed by Liberal MPs, and there are some as well that are governed by organizations such as United Way. As you can see on the circle on the right, unfortunately, that 2 youth councils, by the definition of the FCM, 2 of these 93 exist in Windsor, Essex. So we saw in this area, especially with 8 municipalities, 2 larger youth councils, and 1 case, in the case of Essex, with youth trustees, that we could do a little bit better in Windsor, Essex. Especially considering that according to census data, almost 19% of Windsor, Essex's population is youth. And that's pretty consistent across all 8 local municipalities. So I presented in Kingsville on Monday and LaSalle on Tuesday. We received positive support resolutions from both councils stating that they would be in favor of creating youth councils should we be able to offer our support if we're successful in receiving grant funding. Just because I'm speeding through, I only have 5 minutes. 2 quotes here. The first one is from a youth chair in Durham. It says that municipal politics is often overlooked by youth. And I can say that that's true in a lot of cases. We see it because we're not typically engaged at the political level, but it is the most essential body to be able to create a youth-friendly community. The second is from Trish Wake, who's the municipality resource in Mapleton and in Wellington North. And she comments on the fact that opinions of youth change when we get to see them take on responsibility and give them the opportunities to be successful. I think I myself am a really fair representation of that truth. I was made the Sunsplash Parade Marshal at the age of 14, which I don't know who in their right mind thought that was a good idea, but we did it anyway, and we did it well, and I've continued to take on that responsibility. So here, this just goes to show as well, this comes from Youthful Cities, and it just goes to point out that youth are capable of acting in a way that, you know, doesn't just reflect their personal needs at the moment, but that they really try to tackle important issues. We have the Toronto Youth Council is working on carding and public safety and inclusiveness. We have others tackling affordability, mental health, active living spaces. So really these are things that the community benefits on as a whole. This slide here just talks a little bit about who we know is already behind these initiatives. On the left, there were several pictures behind it, but the Liberal Party of Canada actually has created the Prime Minister's Youth Council, which is comprised of 21 youth from across the country, none of which are from Windsor, Essex, so we'd like to get them involved locally a little bit first. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities has also put out the Municipal Youth Engagement Handbook. After reading it, I found that it was a really great snapshot as to why youth engagement is so important, but what they don't do is really tell you how. You have to do that through research and through consultation, and that's what my organization is currently doing. There's also Playworks, and they are the organization that give the youth-friendly community designation. Windsor is the only one that has it right now, but I'd like to see more in Windsor, Essex have that as well, and you can achieve a gold or platinum status if you have a youth council. So what does this look like? What I'm asking for today is your support to ask for additional funds as we apply for the Community Impact Grant with the Windsor Essex Community Foundation. If and when we are successful in achieving these funds, we will come back to work with the municipalities across Windsor Essex that have given us support resolutions to create youth councils and to support them, not just in the short term, but in the long term, because we know that sometimes it's not easy. You know, municipalities, administration, they need the extra support to make sure that there's succession planning, and the youth can always benefit from more seminars, networking opportunities, and research as well. So I think we've been able to answer all of these questions that Windsor Essex Community Foundation is asking of us. We know that it's going to have an impact because almost 1 in 5 of your residents can participate or fall into this youth category. We know that we can measure the effectiveness by the amount of input we bring back to council, the legacy projects that these youth councils have created, and we know that it's needed because of the organizations that have identified it as well. And these are just some of the things that we can give back to your community should you choose to fall under the umbrella, and that your youth counselors as well can participate in the future as mentors because they've gained the experience, because you have rightfully and so thankfully created these positions in the town of Essex. So thank you.
That's it, young lady? Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Kelsey, you're angelic sitting there, because the reality is that we lost our youth center in Essex here, where youth went to all the time. And again, as we sit here today, opportunities for youth in specifically that of Ward 1, there's no opportunities there. And I think if we could get behind you on this, obviously on this file, support it and be a voice to it in helping you through that voice, then it would obviously be an opportunity for youth to really get out from behind their computers and do other initiatives. And as we sit here today, we're really short in terms of provisions for youth. And I think it's a great opportunity. So whatever, I can't speak for the rest of council, whatever you need from me, I'll be there for you.
Thank you.
And I'm a phone call away, and if it means going to talk to somebody, whatever you need, don't be afraid to contact me.
Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Malash and then Councillor Bjorkman.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, I too would applaud your efforts. You sound like a fantastic individual, and I hope that you continue on this trail that you're on. I would have absolutely no problem supporting, endorsing your organization to the Windsor Essex Community Foundation for a grant.
Thank you.
I can see where there would be some benefits to the town of Essex as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Bjorkman.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, thank you very much for the presentation and what you're doing here. Now, when I went looking for you online, I was getting mixed up with the Coalition of Youth Councils,
Currently dormant.
currently,
Dormant.
they kept leading me to a site and I couldn't find anything, and I think there was one in Toronto, one in Mississauga that just, they don't have anything there anymore. So is this, are you looking at Ontario for your group? Is this an Ontario-specific area? Are you going to grow from Essex and out? Is that the idea?
That is the idea. Right now, we have set out a newsletter, so we're communicating with the youth councils across the province, because I'm the one that has created the master list for all of the contacts there. So we're starting, because I live in Lakeshore, it's easier in this respect as we're starting off to start closer to home, but it doesn't mean that our communication across the province is non-existent.
No, it's a great initiative. Like I said, I see the need for it. I found those other organizations as well. They're looking to partner, and you've got other organizations that you can learn best practices from, and there's so much there. So, and I think it's great for our youth members to be able to get out and go to seminars, like you're saying, learn different things. The things that they can add to our council would be great. So, thank you very much, and really support that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion to receive or receive and support. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Snively. Receive and support. Okay, any questions to the motion? All in favor of that motion? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and good luck, young lady.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Mr. Phil Pocock, regards with billboard sign exemption for election purposes. Mr. Pocock, welcome.
Hello, Council. I'm Phil Pocock. I'm running for Deputy Mayor of Essex, and through the chair, I'm asking not more for an exemption, but more of a clarification on the difference between an election sign and paid advertisement. When I look at an election sign, I look at as it is a candidate sign that's going to be placed on a homeowner or tenant's property with their permission. When I think of a billboard, which I'm wanting clarification on, that is paid advertisement. During the last provincial election, the PC candidate had 3 billboards in the municipality of Essex. So I thought the precedence was already there for candidates in the municipal election to advertise on a billboard. So I'm more looking for direction from council or administration on what the difference is between an election sign and a paid advertise sign.
No, I can speak to that.
Okay, we'll go to our clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in dealing with this question over the last little while, the sign bylaw does define a billboard as being a sign. Based on the definitions in that bylaw of both an election sign and just the general direction or general definition of a sign, the moment that billboard is used for election purposes and, you know, the promoting of a candidate, it becomes an election sign subject to the bylaw and subject to the restrictions that are contained within the bylaw, most notably, of course, being the size restriction, which provides now, or currently for, I believe it's 1 square meter per side. So my interpretation based on the sign bylaw is that a billboard that promotes a candidate and promotes the election of that candidate is an election sign under the bylaw. I can't speak to the provincial election, but if there were billboards providing, promoting a candidate, then those billboards were in contravention during the provincial election back in June, I believe it is. But to my eye, and our policy planner Jeff Watson can provide further clarification if need be. But to my interpretation, a billboard is an election sign the moment it's used for election purposes.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Pocock?
Through your chair, I don't see where the correlation between the billboard and election sign in the bylaw. It doesn't say election, it's just, for the definition of billboard, it says a freestanding off-site sign permanently affixed to the ground, used to identify, advertise an off-site activity or product of service. I'm not seeing that it's an election sign. I'm seeing it as an advertising sign, similar to if you had advertising in a paper, or if you're on TV, say you want to pay for a TV ad, and the person at home has a 70-inch projection TV, are we now in violation of the bylaw, and we don't control that? Because the candidate is paying a business for the sign location. It's not given as a goodwill from the taxpayer, or homeowner, or tenant.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the paid advertising, in my opinion, the paid advertising is basically in a different medium. The sign bylaw is addressing the fact that there's a physical sign. So I pulled from the current bylaw just the general definition of a sign, and if I can read that quickly, the general definition provides that a sign itself is defined under the bylaw as any device, including all its component parts and supporting structure, erected and used or capable of being used to convey information or direction or advertise a use, event, activity, service, or product. And then the definition of an election sign, also pulled out of that bylaw, provides that it's a sign promoting a candidate for political office, and or any other sign which is intended to influence a vote for or against a candidate or issue. So once again, the rationale is it's the physical sign, the sign that's been erected, or the device that's been erected, and upon which a campaign message, a promotion of someone's election to office is being placed on that physical permanent sign. But as well, I use the same rationale in looking at the bylaw when I advised the candidates with respect to car magnet signs. To my eyes, those are also signs. The intent was to convey that information to the community at large. It was a sign affixed to a car promoting the election or promoting one's campaign. So I use the same rationale for that purpose as well.
I guess I see it as the sign is, as a candidate, I'm paying for a place. A magnet affixed to a car or on someone's lawn is easily removable, and there's no dollar figure assigned to that sign location. I'm paying for the sign location as I'd be paying for an ad in TV or I'm paying for an ad in a newspaper. I don't see the billboard as anything more than an a way of advertising. And that's just my opinion, and I would like to hear what other people have to say.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just one final note. I mean, it is advertising, but it's the sign itself. It's the fact that it's a structure, it's a physical sign, it's being displayed in the community. And obviously, one of the main purposes behind the bylaw is to control or balance the aesthetic nature of having the community inundated with candidate signs. And so certainly, you know, going back to the billboard, a billboard sign, in my opinion, is an election sign the moment it's used to promote someone's campaign.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Bjorkman, and then Councillor Bondi, and then Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, through your worship. Thanks, Phil, for bringing this forward. I'd have to say I'm more in line with what Phil is looking at. When I look at the bylaw 11.4, it says election signs may be erected. To me, this bylaw and this area about election signs is talking about signs that we erect for 21 days. It's not about signs that are maybe already out there, about advertising in other areas. It's very specific. Election signs may be erected for a maximum of, the old one was 21 days, now it's 45. But to me, that's talking about the signs that we put up. I would go so far as to say that billboards, car window covers, magnets, mobile signs, T-shirts, hats, those are all out there. None of those are fixed signs. We're talking about something, we don't want people going out there and putting something in the ground for more than 45 days, and if they're going to put it in the ground, we don't want it so big that it's going to cause traffic issues. We don't want it to be sign pollution. But if there's already a billboard that's for rent, and I rent it and I want to put, vote for Steve, I don't see where the town actually can't allow me to do that. Or if I want to buy one of those window coverings that goes across the back of my window and drive around, it says, vote for Steve, that's my property that's moving. I haven't done anything to erect something that may be considered, visually impairing anybody at a corner, anything like that. So when I read this sign bylaw, it's election signs may be erected. To me, those are signs we place in the ground or we build for that campaign period. Whereas other objects that are already out there, I don't think are covered by that. That would be my interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to our delegation and to everyone here. My thoughts on it, kind of how, I didn't know how I was going to come about with an opinion on this, but I feel like there's been a miscommunication between really what's required from the clerk's department and perhaps our policy planning, who makes the sign bylaws, and the candidates. Because nobody in their right mind would go spend $1,600 on a billboard and not be able to use it. So who pays for that miscommunication? Because there may be more than, I didn't buy a billboard, but there may be more than one candidate that did buy a billboard. Mr. Pocock has come here tonight to be conforming, to find out, saying, hey, I bought one, I want to conform to your bylaw, how can I use it? We just had a provincial election. The candidate used 3 of them. There was no communication out to us, to the media, to anybody, no hand slapped anywhere with the provincial election. So thinking about running in the election, we order billboards. Why would we not, right? Like, there's been no really communication. So with that being said, I don't see a problem allowing a billboard. If if candidates started erecting, or not erecting, but putting up a whole bunch of new billboards, then I think we'd have a problem with it as a council, putting up, 50 more billboards. But if there's only 14 billboards in the municipality, which I'm not sure that's how many, but around that many. If there's only 14 billboards in the municipality, the most the residents have to look at is 14 headshots for 45 days. It's not the end of the world. Campaigns are expensive to run. It's hard to get to every door. You may want to feel like your campaign, you may want to feel that a billboard is going to get your message out more than door to door or more than newspaper. I'm not sure. That's up to that candidate to make that decision, but I don't want to be here blocking any candidate from doing what they feel would be best, especially because we have some precedent setting with the provincial election. Had we come down on the provincial election and say, no, you can't do this, and actually at the end of the day, what are the consequences? What are the consequences? We really don't have consequences, so he could have put it up and then nothing would have happened. But I agree with Councillor Bjorkman in his definition, and I really don't see it that big of a deal. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Mrs. Hunter, our CAO, with some comments.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's administration's position at this point. I mean, ultimately, a billboard has to be approved by council. And right now, it would appear in our eyes as if council has a pecuniary interest here in making a decision on this, because 6 of the 7 council members are running for office. I'm not sure how you would make a decision on allowing this, because it could potentially have a benefit to 6 of 7.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Councillor Rogers and then Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to echo Donna Hunter's sentiments or position on this. I think it would be rather inappropriate for this council to, Mr. Pocock has asked for clarification. The clarification has come from administration, who should give that clarification at this point in time. It's inappropriate for this council to make any changes to this bylaw right now, or to overstep the administration at this point in time. We are 6 of us in the midst of a campaign, and we should not be changing the rules of the campaign right now. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. I have Councillor Vogt.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, I see you sitting there, and I want to go on record and say I appreciate your honesty and your forward thinking, and the fact you appreciate council and administration and getting clarity, because there's been some things happening lately that are certainly questionable in terms of truthfulness and deceitfulness. So with that being said, is in terms of council making a decision, we have no decisions to make. There's no decision to make here tonight. It's very clear. The bylaw either dictates the size of the sign or it doesn't. And if the bylaw dictates the size of the sign, and the bylaw says very clearly that the sign can't be any more than 48 inches square, then you can't have your sign, Phil. If it doesn't say that, then Phil can have his sign. It's very clear. It should be dictated and controlled by dimension. And if it says in there, again, let me reiterate, if the bylaw says very clearly in dimension and size it can't be any bigger than, then he can't have it. If it doesn't say that, it's my opinion, Phil, the world's yours. And we just play by the rules, people. Let's not twist things. Let's not turn it. Let's just play by the rules. So if the bylaw controls the dimension of it, then Phil, again, you won't be getting it. If it doesn't control it, you will be getting it. That's my view. So is there anything in the bylaw that talks about the dimension of the sign?
It sounded like a question to me. Either Mr. Watson or Mr. Roger. Mr. Watson, you're the sign man.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Vokes is correct. There is a dimension requirement, and that's 1 square meter, about 10 square feet. So a sign could be 3 by 3.5 feet or 2 by 5 feet, some combination that gives you 10 square feet. So the issue then is not so much that it be on a billboard or not on a billboard. The question is, how big is the sign permitted to be if it's on a billboard? And as you say, Councillor Vokes, there is a size limit. Council can look at different sizes if they feel feel that that's an issue that's still worthy of discussion. All I ask, and I think all that Mr. Auger asked, is that there be consistency, so that not only do incumbents have some benefits, but people who are also the competitors, the candidates, also have the same benefits. And I think that's a key thing in any election campaign. As far as the provincial and conservatives, provincial and federal elections, they don't ask.
Okay. So in terms of the air there, and Chris Lewis getting the opportunity to put a sign up, first of all, shame on him and his government for not approaching the town, like as Phil has done tonight, respectfully. But he managed to get it in. It didn't do him much good, but he managed to get it in. So with that being said, Phil, I don't apologize to you, but it's my opinion, again, because of the things that have been going on in this election that are not valid, and they're not true, and they're a little bit manipulative. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be putting something in this week's paper, clearing up some issues that's happened by candidates that should have never happened.
Sir, I must ask you to stick to the point.
Well,
What are we talking
it's
about?
all relevant to the point, your Chair.
It isn't.
If
No,
I
it
can.
isn't.
It's all about doing
I-
things in terms of election processes, what's controlled and what's not. So anyways, I'll
Right.
leave it at that. And again, Phil, it's really just playing by the rules. And I agree with you. Like, there's some things happened in the past that shouldn't have happened, but it's very clear in terms of the bylaw size.
Anyone else like to talk about the signs or anything we've discussed in the last 5 or 10 minutes? Councilor Bundy, I had you, but I'm going to let you go again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to our CEO's comment that council approves billboards, it's my understanding that council doesn't approve what goes on billboards, we just approve new billboards, because we just had a billboard in Essex Center with a taxi, take you to Cheetahs, right? That didn't come here for approval. We approve new billboard locations, not what goes on billboards. So I just want that clarified. So Phil can put up a sign, and Katie can put up a sign, and Fred and Kim and Robbie, and everybody can put up a sign if they want, right? If we want to be fair and allow new people to run for council, I think we should be fair, but I just wanted that point of information clarified. We don't approve what goes on billboards. We never have. Why are we doing it now?
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's very clear. We're not approving what goes on billboard. And it has been stated, there is a size in the bylaw that is for the maximum size of an election sign. As the clerk has said, once it has something to do with election on it, it's an election sign, and it cannot be more than the 1 square meter or 1 square meter in total size. And that would be the entire gist of this conversation right now. And if there was any indication that, or any request for us to change that right now, I would have to say I would declare a conflict of interest, because I am part of a campaign, and we cannot be changing things at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I got a couple comments. We'll wrap this up, and then Mr. Pocock, you'll have the final words. Along the same lines as Councilor Rogers, if there's a size limit, no problem. Stay within that. But I don't want to be changing anything in the middle of the stream. Like, the election's on. It's on. It's been on for months. So I wouldn't be for changing any of our bylaw. The recommendation is this is a size, that's a size. We shouldn't be changing right now. And boy, I heard the word abide by the rules. Honesty. Wow, was that ever good to hear? Does that mean the whole team is now going to abide by the rules here? The whole team, I heard that at this meeting, which is the first time I've heard in 15 years. I'm really glad this is going to happen. So if you're within the rules, I'm all for it. If you're not, I'm against you. Your comment, sir.
Thanks for the clarification. I wish that Mr. Auger would have let me know prior to purchasing the billboards, though I asked him about billboards prior to going through with it. but I will follow your rules for the time being.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much for that, and good luck, sir. Now we need a motion to receive. And Councillor Rogers, Councillor Bjorkman, and receive and support. Now,
Just receive.
yep, so that's a motion receive. Okay, any questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Through your worship, it's Matt and Lisa McDonald. Matt and Lisa McDonald.
Thank you.
Hi, we're from the Townsview subdivision, and we're looking to invest time and energy into the new park. There's been parkland that has been dedicated for our subdivision, and we've been speaking with Doug Sweet to get the park moving, and sooner than later. We just had a few questions. Doug was able to answer most of them before we started here tonight. We just wanted to make sure that the park didn't fall behind or get lost in the shuffle. Our first question we had was for Doug. We were questioning how much the budget was for our park, which he was able to answer. And then I guess our last questions were about fundraising. If we are to start on our own fundraising, if it is the town's job to find big sponsors, like I know most of our parks in town are sponsored by different clubs, and where we proceed from there.
Hey, Mr. Sweet?
Your worship, obviously this is a good thing. Anytime neighborhoods want to improve faster and improve the quality of life in the town of Essex, it's a good thing. We just obtained this property in terms of the designated parkland early spring, because the development was just recently started. So we just seeded it this year. We're maintaining it so they have some green space. I met with Matt and Lisa in approximately May. I do have money in our capital budget for this, and because it's part of development charges, I will go for it as well. Without a true plan per se yet, I can just go on past things we purchased. Past playground was approximately $350,000. All new parks, we want to make sure we have shade structures, a pathway for accessibility. So we're probably looking at about $400,000 to have this complete in the future. Anytime there's fundraising, I think that's a good thing. They've gone around approximately 24, probably more now, but initially about 24 neighbors are interested in it. And we treat this like we've done with any other fundraising, be it the cenotaphs, the dog park. They would meet with administration, we get a plan with finance in terms of a farm and how tax receipts would work. So I think it's something in terms of council approve some portion in terms of next year's budget and see how fundraising goes in terms of how quick this would move ahead.
Okay. Further? No?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Vokes and then Councillor Bjorkman.
So how much do we have in the capital budget right now towards this?
In the capital budget for this park,
Yeah.
nothing. However, it's part of the development charges. For 2018, there's no money. 2019, I'll put some funds in, but it was part of the development charges, and we're trying to get what number of that would go towards parkland.
Okay, so Tamley, recognizing that we're going to move some numbers forward and juggle some stuff around, Tamley, how do you see it based on DC charges, what we could have there? And I use the word tentatively. Any idea? Did you do that math yet? Did you and Jeff sit down by any chance and look at that?
Through your worship, we began that to try and get a number, but we don't have the number, so I
Okay.
don't even want to throw that
Okay,
out.
so we know obviously that there will be some funding there. And I want to enlighten council a little bit in terms of how this all come about. I belong to CIBC. I walked in the bank one day and Matt come up and excused himself to me and talked to me about his interest and his family's interest and the community interest on fundraising. And he really didn't know how to go about it. And so hence I had asked to set up a meeting, and then it was the CAO who who suggested that him and whoever, obviously his wife tonight, come to council, this is probably a healthy exercise to really find out where we want to go with this. So it was, Matt had said to me in the bank that the community in which they live in has interest in helping with fundraising. And whether it's an election or not, Matt, I have interest in helping you with fundraising. So whatever it takes to get the job done, whether we collectively work together to get $10 or 10,000, it will all help in the end. It will never hurt. It will always enhance, and the money will always be given directly to that project. So I don't know how you want to start to form the committee, but I think at the end of it, we will need some fundraising. And we take great ownership and appreciation in the fact that when I see a resident and his wife sitting before us and say boisterously, we want to help the town. I got a great appreciation for that, and that's why I want to roll out the carpet and say I want to help too wherever I can. So I don't know if administration could guide us on that structure along with Doug's office to say this is what the committee will look like. I'm sure you could use the town's tax number for fundraising, and so whatever it takes to get it started, to get that in for you and your children as early and as conveniently as we can and as well as we can, then let's get the ball started. Let's get started on it. So.
Okay, I have Mr. Sweet and then Councillor Bjorkman.
One thing I just wanted to add to council, with this park, it's not a surplus, so I'm sure everybody remembers the 2015 master plans at the top of everybody's head. But we did part of it was a walking radius for all your neighborhood parks. You want it to be at least a half kilometer to be able to walk to it. This was a gap, so in a gap analysis, it is needed. So this isn't going to be surplus in the other parks. It is an area that is definitely needed. So.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for that, Doug. And you've already talked to Doug. He's the guy that, anything you need, he's the guy that's going to fix you up. Okay, Councillor Bjorkman passed, and Deputy Mayor Malash.
I wish I wouldn't ask.
Councillor Bjorkman passed. You're up, Deputy Mayor. Yep.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say, too, that myself and my wife would be interested in helping you as well with any fundraising. If you have an event going on, I would suggest that if none of us councillors know that you've got the event going on, let Mr. Auger know, and he'll pass it along to all of us to make sure that we're aware that you got a fundraising event going on. And quite often, if all of us or some of us can make it out, we'll certainly support the event.
Sir, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, ask administration, excuse me, is there something that administration, as the town can do to help with the mechanics of fundraising for, some private individuals? Thank you.
Mr. Sweet.
Your worship, we've done this in many other projects, so we have a format. First thing, we work with finance to get a form, get a tentative budget so we have a goal. And one other thing I like to do is get a plan, what it'll look like, because it's easier if people visually see something if they want to give money towards it. So it's something we can work in the next few weeks getting that going.
Anyone else? Motion received, Councillor Bundy, supported by Councillor Rogers. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries. Sorry, I should have let you have the last word. Are you okay with everything?
Well, I just say thank you for having us here on the agenda tonight, and to Doug and Randy that we've been working with, and everyone for your support tonight too. We really appreciate it.
And it's a heck of a lot easier for everybody to work with you if you're out there like you are. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us. We're out.
Item 8 on the agenda this evening, reports from administration. 8.1, Corporate Services 2018-10 Re-Extension Agreement, and this is together with Bylaw 1743 for 3 readings for receipt and for 3 readings to the bylaw.
Moved by Councilor Rogers, supported by Councilor Bondi. Councilor Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we do both of them at the same time?
It's, through you, Mr. Chair, it's probably simpler if we pass them one
Okay,
each.
okay.
They're two separate bylaws.
All right.
As I've heard from county council, I think we've done it in the past, but county council does them all together. We pass them individually. Okay, so the first one, any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. And
And 8.2, also an extension agreement, Corporate Services 2018-11, together with bylaw 1742 for 3 readings.
moved by Deputy Mayor Milosh, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? That motion carries.
8.3, Drainage 2018-07, reappointment of a drainage engineer to prepare a report for a new access culvert over the South Malden Road drain for receipt and for council to support the appointment of Root Engineering to prepare said drainage report.
Moved by Councilor Snively, supported by Councilor Rogers. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Reports from youth members. Ethan, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'd just like to say that there is a beach volleyball tournament going on in Colchester, September 9th. Registration does close tomorrow, so, yeah, that's about it.
Did you get a team from the town? You did? Good.
The different age groups will have different times to go.
Okay, thank you for that. Motion received is report. All right, Councilor Snively and Councilor Bjorkman. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Ethan. Back to school today? All right. Any council update? Deputy Mayor? No. Okay, thank you. All right. Correspondence to be received? Yes, sir. Yes.
Through you, County Council. Is there any updates on the extension of the bike path? I've been asked that a lot of times along County Road 50.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
You want to give them an update? What?
Our budget has been passed at the county level, but Mr. Watson would be able to tell you how much has been passed.
Okay, thank you. If I may.
Yes, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the next phase will go from Oxley to Oxley Golf Course, and it's likely to be in October when they get that done. I've been talking to the county representatives, and they're saying that it's quite a busy year for them, but they plan to get it done before the asphalt plants have closed.
And further that, the plan is to do so much every year, isn't it?
That's entirely at the discretion of council. We expect to go about a kilometer or so every year with council's approval. You know, it's a 60-40% funding arrangement, partnership with the county. So basically, we are the ones who sort of instigate the next phases and how much council wants to contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. Okay, we are down to correspondence to be received and supported. We have an email from Suzanne Allison with regards to the, Remembrance flag. Councilor Lopes.
I was in discussion last night with Suzanne Allison, and they fulfilled their sponsorship commitment already. Everybody's come forward and taken those already, so we missed the opportunity. So, but she says thank you to the town for considering.
Could we be considered for next year's? This is an annual thing, maybe? Yeah, okay. Okay. So what you were trying to do, Councilor Snively, get council, that didn't work? It didn't happen? Wasn't you trying to get us all to, okay, thank you. Oh.
Your Worship, to your point in terms of next year, if administration could be gracious enough to maybe send an email to her on behalf of administration council to keep us in mind for next year, we would appreciate it. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion received. Councilor Snively and Councilor Bondi, all in favor. Motion carries. Committee of Adjustment meeting of August 14th. Looking for receipt and adoption. Councilor Bondi, Councilor Bjorkman. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries. New business? No new business. Okay, notice of motion. Mr. Roger.
Yep. 15.1 is a notice of motion that was presented at the August 20th meeting and is being brought forward for consideration this evening. Before this motion can be considered, council would need to pass a motion to reconsider since this directly involves a decision previously made by council. Once again, by way of reminder, at the August 7th meeting, council passed R18-08369 that the Essex Town Center Limited rezoning application be postponed to the next term of council. Once again, we would firstly need a motion to reconsider, and then council could entertain the motion that was presented. Once again, the motion to reconsider would need to be moved and seconded by 2 members who voted with the majority at the August 7th meeting on that motion, and you would require a 2/3 majority.
And I do believe Councilor Rogers voted for that.
I will make that motion.
And seconded by Councilor Bondi, who voted for that motion in the first place. Okay, Councilor Bondi. Councilor Rogers, you have the floor, sir. You want to speak to this? What you want?
About rescinding about which? About this?
Yeah, what?
Motion or about the other?
Well, no,
It's just on the motion to reconsider, so we just need a
yeah,
vote.
right.
Yeah.
I just would encourage that we bring it back so that we can vote on my notice of motion, because I believe that we jumped the gun and we should be the council of the day right now, that we should be looking at this because we are the council that knows the most about this. As well as I think that some of the issues that were somewhat used as the catalyst for postponing this are not the issues of the entire council. They are issues of individuals and should be addressed as such. Thank you.
Okay. So all in favor, Deputy Mayor Malage.
And I'm going to vote in favor of the reconsideration here, and I'm going to vote in favor of bringing it back to this council. And one of the reasons why I'm looking at this too is we want this development as soon as possible. And I know that even if we bring it back to the table at this point in time and talking with administration, there are so many issues with this particular plan that it may be next spring before administration has an opportunity to have all of the reports in place for us to make a decision. If we leave it to the next term of council, it may be spring of the following year, who knows? And rather than leave this sit and wait till the next term, I believe we should be bringing this back now and having our administration work on the issues. One of the things that I've heard after we had the discussion last time was that there's potential in what Mr. Valente was looking to do was to move this project from a 400-home subdivision to a 600-home subdivision. With that in mind, there's all kinds of underlying issues, stormwater management being one of them. And that is a really big issue. You have to get consultants, an engineering firm involved. One thing that I heard mentioned after the fact when I voted on this previously too was that the stormwater itself, the stormwater pond retention area, is in the high spot on the property, and that should be relooked at. There's going to be issues if we end up leaving that stormwater management system the way it is. So I would prefer to bring this back and have administration give them the opportunity to look at it now, and then by the time the new council is formed, that's probably the time that this would be able to come back, and they'd be able to jump on it immediately, and hopefully we could have something starting in the spring, and that's probably going to suit Mr. Valente fine. He probably realized there were some issues that would have to be addressed in this whole plan anyway, and was probably hoping that spring would be the time when this would get moving forward. So I'm in favor of bringing this back. Let's take a look at it and get our administration moving on some of these issues beforehand, so that the next council probably can make this decision, because I don't think an administration, when I spoke with them too, agreed that some of the issues would take a considerable amount of time to get addressed.
Would you like me to ask the question? No, Councillor Vokes, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, here we are, like, we're sitting here and we're kind of, wishy-washy and moving around a little bit, not taking a firm position. Obviously, administration shared with council why they thought their reasons in the interest politically and for the community that maybe the development should be put on hold. And I appreciate the opinions of administration and their guidance, but the reality is this. This file was opened up prior to us becoming lame duck status. And if you know that in terms of the lame duck status, if we're in lame duck and this fits that, then we have no right or opportunity as a council to move with it. But if it doesn't affect and it's not eroded by the lame duck status, and we're doing all the right things in principle, irrelevant to the election looming. So my question is, to administration, if council was to move forward with this file on the Remo Valenti development, because I want to make it clear with the media, because things will be spun tomorrow. They'll be twisted, they'll be manipulated. We're in an election. People will be saying they're not doing things right and they're being manipulative. So I want to know, and I want clarity for the record, does this adversely affect our lame duck status, or is it in violation of the lame duck status by moving with this development? Simply, respectfully, a yes or no would be a preference.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it does not fall within one of the restricted acts of council.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. So I want to go on record, and I want to make it clear with everybody here tonight. We have all the right in the world as a collective council right now, sitting before you, representing you, to move this with development, move with this development. But I want to go on record, and I got appreciation for administration talking to us in terms of maybe guiding us to something that might be a little easier. But we should move with this development, respectfully, because it has nothing to do with the current status of this council and lame duck status. We got all the right in the world to move with it, and I think we should. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll wrap it up with a couple of comments. I also voted to table this thing because there were things happening that clouded the whole process. So we're above and beyond that because it's going to last after we're done, some of us. So I'm all in favor of bringing this back also, where I wasn't at that time because I thought it might move a little too quickly as a clouded issue. So I'm for it too. You ready for the question? Or anyone else like to say anything? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Motion carries.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that's the motion to reconsider. So now on the main question, that resolution R18 being a motion to defer the proceedings of the Essex Town Center subdivision until the next term of council be brought back for reconsideration, and that the business and processes of this file be brought back to the current sitting of council for deliberation as moved by Councillor Rogers and require a second.
Councillor Snively supports that. You just brought that back to be dealt with by us, and Councillor Snively says he'll support it. Questions, Councillor Vokes?
Yeah, question, thank you. I got to do this because it's important to me. I want to go on record too and say that during the original call of the question, the only ones who didn't oppose moving with it was myself and Councillor Bjorkman. We agreed it should move forward. Everybody else opposed it, so I'm glad to see it's back on the table again. It's great development, it's great opportunity.
And that is neither here nor there. Council passed the table. It doesn't matter who voted for or who didn't. Like, excuse me? Well, I have the floor, so don't speak, please. Okay. So anyways, disregard all of that stuff in the past. The council passed it. The council of the day, whether it's 6-1, 5-2, it doesn't matter. It was passed by council, and it's brought back by council. Way to go. Councilor Bjorkman, you have the verbal report from the email conference.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it all right if I just stay here and do the report? I want to go over there. I got a chair. This year for AMO, Director of Infrastructure, Chris Nepsey, myself, and the Mayor attended AMO. And Chief Arnell was also at the conference. It was good to go to the conference with a new government in place. There's the good and the bad of it. It's good to be there with the new government. It's bad to be there with the new government. It was very interesting to see just dealing with ministers and dealing with ministries. It's that point of the government where they say, well, we don't know how much money we have. Can you help us with this? Well, they left us in this kind of shape. So there were a number of things that obviously we didn't get a lot of commitments from, but I thought it was important for us to make those first connections with the ministers that we will be dealing with for the next 4 years and try to get their ear early. We had 6 ministries that we met with: Community Safety and Corrections, Tourism, Sport and Culture, Health, Natural Resources, Environment and Conservation, and Education. The highlights of those, I would say, when we met with the Ministry of Health, it's something that's been brought up here at this council table many times. I know Councillor Vokes is very vocal about seeing the minister here, so we brought that message to the ministry. Now, unfortunately, we did not meet with the minister. She wasn't there, but her assistant was there, and we emphatically stated that we were looking for a meeting, and we were told that the minister will be doing a tour of southwestern Ontario. We'll be coming down this way either this winter or spring. So we made sure that we told them we'll be available at any time. If you can be here, we'll be available. Our council will meet with you when you can meet. And we left that as open as we could. We discussed the state of the emergency departments and the hallway medical care that many of us are being attended to that way these days. So that was the big push that we had. You know, we've got the talk of the mega hospital being developed, but the hospitals that are here right now are not being taken care of properly. There's not enough room, there's not enough doctors, there's not enough nurses, and I'm sure they heard that from everybody that came into that room. But it's important for us to keep going back. A number of times we were talking while we were there that, you know, we have people that come to us almost on an annual basis looking for funding for different things. And we only have so much funding that we can give out as a municipal council. So it's important for us to kind of remember that as we're going to the next level up, that they have a limited amount of funding. So you have to find a way, try to stand out, try to have a different approach, come with something in your hand as opposed to saying, I just need this. So we tried to think out of the box on a number of things that we went out about. The next one was education. So we brought our argument again of selling surplus schools to the municipalities for $1. When Doug Ford spoke to the delegates, he brought forward the line, there is no one size fits all, which was just so great to hear from the next level of government up, because that's what they try to do. They've looked at our rural municipalities the way they look at Windsor and London, and one size does not fit all. So we were able to use that in our discussion with the Board of Education, that in our rural communities, when we lose a school, you can't close 2 schools, put them all into a 3rd school, and you're still in the same neighborhood. That doesn't work for us. It's important for our well-being. It's important for the existence of the town. We were able to present the argument that we have great businesses out in Harrow. We have great places for people to go and work. But if somebody is going to move into a new neighborhood, into a new town, and get a job there, the question they're going to ask is, where do my kids go to school? Well, your kids go to school in another town. Well, you know what? I'm moving to the other town. I'll drive to work and back. I don't want my child on a bus for an hour every day. So those kinds of things is where it doesn't fit for our community. So they were very good. They listened to us. They directed us actually to a surplus property benefit program that is through the federal government. So, I mean, at least it was one thing I hadn't heard before, and we did get their attention. So that's one of the recommendations we'll be making is for administration to look into this program. With environment and conservation, we brought forward our concerns regarding the algae blooms in the western basin of Lake Erie. We encourage the ministry to look at protecting our waterways by legislating buffer strips. One of the things that we've looked at, even through IRCA, is that natural barriers are so important when it comes to runoff on fields. Having farmers, plow their fields right to the ditch line when it comes time for spraying and for putting on their pesticides and algicides, whatever else they put on there, those things leach directly into their creeks, which go directly into our streams. For us to do that, we say as a municipality and a county, you can't have individual municipalities legislating differently. We need the government to come down with a legislation that allows all of us to have a piece of legislation that has teeth in it, that has a fine in it, that has a reason why people need to believe in that legislation. So we brought that to them, and also talking about the federal government and the states having cut off the funding for the Great Lakes cleanup, that they work with their counterparts in Michigan and Ohio, because no matter what we do over here, we have to work in concert with those other states in order to get it cleaned up. Next was the community's safety, and we did the OSPCA issues for one counselor here that is very interested in her animals. We presented ourselves as a progressive in many areas. We talked about our spay-neuter programs, our exotic animals program, our tethering programs, and actually the minister told us at that meeting that they are reviewing a number of those things, and they haven't updated that part of the legislation for 20 years. So one of the things they asked us to do was put a report together and send it to them, and maybe that will help them with their legislation. And again, it's one of those things that if we're just doing it as a municipality and we don't have buy-in from the whole county or from the province, it's very difficult to enforce those things. So that's another recommendation we'll be making is for administration to put a report together to send to that minister. We have support. A couple of things that we learned that are coming and are partly here right now is a big one is the LPAT, which is the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, which is replacing the OMB. There'll be very different procedures with that. Just quickly, unlike the past where the OMB was given the latitude to decide on issues based on whether or not they thought the best solution belonged to the developer or the municipality, and they could recommend other things, they will only rule on whether or not the applicant can prove that local planning does not fit provincial legislation or the official plan of the municipality or county. It's the only thing that they can rule on, which changes everything that we're going to be doing at this table. What it does, it puts a lot more responsibility on the council. The council will be making decisions, and if you make that decision and that decision fits our official plan, that's it. And where a lot of times we've had councils in the past, not necessarily here, but other places where they can say, no, we're just going to deny your request. Take it to the OMB. And they let the OMB be the bad guys. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. If we make a decision and it comes here, it will be very difficult for those decisions to get overturned at the LPAT. So we'll put a lot more emphasis on what we do here at this table. The other big interest, the biggest attendance for a speech for sure was the cannabis legislation implementation. There's a lot we still don't know about the regulations the province will be passing regarding licensing and distribution, but what they have decided is that you will need to be 19 years old to possess or purchase. There'll be no smoking in public spaces, workplaces, motor vehicles, or boats. It will be illegal to sell outside of a licensed facility, so you can't buy something and take it someplace and sell it. 30 grams per adult will be the possession limit, and 4 plants per residence. Not a resident, but per residence. So if there's 8 people living there, it's still just 4 plants. It's understood that most of the costs of enforcing this legislation will be borne by the municipalities, and the government is providing some funding to help with that. All Ontario municipalities, and this was the big, very important takeaway. All Ontario municipalities will have the opportunity to opt out of having retail stores in their municipality, but they need to make the decision very early in the new year. This will be part of the legislation in April. So this will allow municipalities that want to take the time to study other jurisdictions and follow best practices in setting up their bylaws before allowing a retail sales presence in their municipality. At any time in the future, you can opt back in. But they'll be handing out licenses starting in April, and they want to know what municipalities are open to it, what municipalities don't want to start with it. So that's something that needs to be determined very early in the new year. It should be one of the first things the new council looks at, and to me it's something we should be out there talking to our public about, talking to constituents about, to get a feel for what the people in the town of Essex want. So it was great to meet and talk with councils from across the province, share ideas and issues. We have many of the same issues and challenges as many of the small urban and rural communities across the province, and uniting under a banner like AMO gives us a greater voice. So all in all, it was a very good conference. Glad we attended, and that's my report.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bjorkman, and I've got a couple add-ons there. One being that the mayor of Tecumseh, Gary McNamara, became the representative from small rural areas. So he was acclaimed, was he? Was he acclaimed? Yeah. Yeah, he was acclaimed. And I just want to piggyback. I missed one of the sessions that Councillor Bjorkman was talking about because I went with the county administration and some of the mayors from down this area with regards to the bypass. On my return, I heard that there's a picture on the front page of the Windsor Star, probably on Monday, that said there's not going to be anything done with that highway for 2 years by a couple of upper-tier politicians in our area. Not true. That's not what they told us. The minister told us that the premier is aware of our needs here, as we all know that, because he was down here visiting Kingsville, Leamington. The minister said, he is aware of our needs down here. They have a couple things that they have to do before they could ever put a shovel in the ground, and one of them is to purchase property and something with regards to down by 77 highway, and I just don't recall what that was, but he said there'll be a shovel in the ground within 2 years. Not that they're going to get started in 2 years. The minister told us there's going to be a shovel in the ground within 2 years. So I marked the date down when 2 years from then is. So I won't be around, but I'll be able to send them a phone call or something like that. So as Councillor Bjorkman said, we got to meet with 5 ministers, 6 counting this one. Like, we were turned down because they were too busy. The Minister of Transportation couldn't meet with the town of Essex. So, but we did have our nose in 6 of their faces. So, and they listened to us. But they know we're here. Thanks, Steve. Chris Nipsey, I will say, was pretty well our spokesman, and he did a wonderful job. So, thanks, Chris. First time he's ever been there, too. He really enjoyed the whole conference. So, motion receive his report. Councillor Bundy and Councillor Rogers. All in favor? Oh, yep. Comment, sure.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, over to Councillor Bjorkman. Thank you for going on our behalf. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the notes and getting the feedback. Something happens and I'm not here come the new term, I really want to make sure we get this report of all of our good tidbits to the minister regarding our bylaws around exotic pets and our animal welfare bylaws. So perhaps we could make a motion tonight, or we can go through the notice of motion process that council direct administration to make a report on our exotic pet and animal welfare bylaws to send off. Whatever anybody, if Councillor Bjorkman has an idea. I just don't want it to fall off the table. I want to execute this before November.
Mrs. Hunter would like to say something.
Through your worship, I don't think it's necessary, Councillor Bondi. I've made a note. I'll be talking to Chris and to Steve about it and putting together something.
Councillor Bjorkman, you had your hand? No? Okay. Okay, at this time I'll turn the mic over to Clerk Robert Ogier.
Through you, Mr. Chair, quickly, I apologize, just needed to go back on the agenda to item 15. As part of the published agenda, we were provided with 2 notices of motion for presentment this evening, coming back to the next meeting. So, Councillor Bondi, if you could state your motion on the junior school property
Thank you.
development?
Sure. So a notice of motion for the next council meeting that council receive a verbal report from administration about the ideas, possibilities on how to get the junior school property developed. For example, let's have a conversation about possible upgrades to the storm sewers that enhance the chance of development. Just to have a conversation with council before this term of council is done. So the next council can hit the ground running.
And to your second notice of motion on speeding zones and safety districts?
Yes, that council create an inventory of community safety zones around school districts and crossings, reviewing speed limits in the community safety zones. Because I don't think it's all the same throughout the municipality.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Now we will go back to 16, and reports and announcements from the council members. And we'll start with you, Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, I have none.
Thank you, Councillor Snively.
Yes, through your worship, Chad Ferris from Moyer Ferris has been getting a lot of phone calls from different media and different individuals phoning him. I want to make it clear that he is coming to Essex, and he will be coming. He had a 3-year delay through the MTO, and he had to sign a 3-year lease and no clause in it to get out. So he's about 2 years before he starts here. So I wanted the public to be aware of that. But he definitely is coming.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've just been through another Labor Day weekend and the Harrow Fair. I want to thank all the Harrow Fair volunteers and the committee and everyone that came to the Harrow Fair for making it such a wonderful and great event again for the 164th time. Next year, 165, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sir, Councillor Bjorkman. Okay. Councillor Vogts. No. And Deputy Mayor Malash.
Nope, all good, thanks.
I just have 3 announcements to make over Labor Day weekend, and excuse me for not knowing the name of the teams, but my grandson's team got beat in the finals, 12-11. There was another team, younger kids, got beat in the semifinals, and then we had a team, about 15 and 16-year-olds, I think, won the whole thing this year. So congratulations to all the coaches for all of our teams in town and all the young athletes, boys and girls. Good job done. I heard you really represented Essex well, so congratulations to all of you. Sir.
Item 17, bylaws. 1740 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the August 20th meeting for 3rd reading.
Moved by Councillor Bondi, supported by Councillor Vogts. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
And bylaw 1745 to confirm the proceedings of this September 4th meeting for 2 readings this evening.
Moved by Councillor Snively, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Looking for adjournment. Councillor Vogts and Councillor Bondi, all in favor. That's always good motion. Have a great night, everyone.